Yeah.
Awesome. So thank you everyone for being here and welcome to our fifth episode of the Sharpest Minds Navigating the Job Search webinar series. Today we have a very, very special guest. We have Israel with us and he's going to be telling us about his job search, how he landed on his internship, and all about his Sharpest Minds project. So as usual, we're actually trying a different schedule. So before we start, just wanted to let you know that this will be happening every week at 5:30 p.m. EST. So if you guys want to talk about your job search, or if you want to come listen in and hear about how other people landed their jobs and were able to like work in data science, data engineering, and tech in general, come hop in with us every week at 5:30. Um, so as usual, if you have any questions, we really encourage you to ask questions during the webinar. You can ask questions via chat, so you should be able to use the chat function, or you could also use the raise hand function, then we can unmute you. And then there's also a kind of like QA function. If you want to remain anonymous, you can leave questions for me and Israel, and we will answer it for you during the webinar. So without
Okay.
further ado, let me introduce our special guest. So Israel is a data scientist, data science analyst intern at Loblaw Companies Limited. So prior to this, he was a Sharpest Minds mentee from April to August 2021. He has experience working with large data sets, breaking down information, and applying interpretations to complex business concerns. He's also dedicated to skill development and bringing value to dynamic teams. So welcome, Israel, and thank you so much for being here. Would you like to start by giving us a quick background on your experience and just your past professional positions?
Okay. Thank you so much, Amber. Thank you for having me. I'm really glad to be here. Really glad to share my journey because I believe information like this is very important. I was once out there looking for this kind of information. So I'll just go into my background. I I did my before coming to Canada, I did my master's in industrial engineering back in Nigeria. So I came into Canada on a scholarship to do my PhD at the University of Toronto. So my PhD is in financial maths. I did some valuation of financial derivatives. So along the line, I started to do some. I started to pick interest in like machine learning, data science, data analytics, and my supervisor gave me the opportunity to supervise some projects in that. So I supervised some projects with Unilever Canada, Nestle Canada, but mainly on just supply chain optimization. And then it was just supervision, right? I was just supervising the project. So that's my journey before. I think towards the early this year, I started to get interest in like looking for a job. So something I found out was that I was really lacking in like just having my skills directed. Like I knew a lot. I was just expanding my knowledge, getting to know new tools, new software, but then my knowledge was just broad, but then it wasn't targeted with in the direction of what I wanted. So I came into Sharpest Mind with that background, and Sharpest Minds really helped me with my mentor, hone my skills for the particular kind of job I needed at that time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for sharing. And
thank you.
yeah, I love Sharpest Minds. They helped me a lot with my journey as well. I have so much like respect for the mentors and mentees here. It's just like a great community. So
Okay.
one thing you mentioned is you started kind of like in industrial engineering and then you did your research in financial markets, specifically in derivatives, before getting interested in more of like data science, machine learning.
Yeah.
So is there any sort of like I guess like what is like the overlap between or among those three fields and what kind of skills did you take away from your IE background to
Okay.
your financial market research to now data science?
Okay. I think from IE, it's mainly like trying to optimize processes. So we model processes in form of mathematics
Mhm.
or operations research, and then we try to find the best way to do things. That's how I summarize industrial engineering. So finding the best way to do things. So we do a lot of optimization, um, analysis of data, and all of that stuff. So looking at that, from that, when I got into finance, initially I started to just model real life problems. Like I was trying to optimize optimal stopping games. So
Okay.
looking at how to model that as a mathematical problem. And the first application we found was in finance.
Mhm.
So it was from optimization, then find an application domain in finance. but then that underlying theme of optimizing real life problems was still there. So looking at how AI started growing, machine learning started growing, there was a lot of interest in that. And I really liked it a lot because it was solving real life problems, right? So that was what drew me into that. And now doing data analytics, still solving real life problems, optimizing and finding the best way to do things.
That's really cool. I always love hearing about, folks who move into data science from like sort of like a different industry. I actually moved to data science from archaeology, so really interested in your
Oh,
journey.
awesome.
Kind of curious. So did you guys do a lot of, I mean, it seems that you did a lot of, mathematics optimization, a lot of really like hardcore math, both in your undergrad and in your research afterwards. Did you guys do a lot of coding as well, or is that something that you picked up recently when you started to move into data science?
Okay, I picked up coding during my undergrad,
Oh,
but it was mainly in like Visual Basic, just
oh
very
wow.
basic
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
right? But initially, then I remember I tried to learn web designing, but eventually got into like Visual Basic. So Visual Basic was really easy for me to learn.
Mm.
But along the line, I saw that Python had the um, most like Python was the most applied language in terms of data science. So I was learning that also, but I think when I got into data science, I saw a real life, like real life application of this, and then with my mentor also in Sharpest Minds, we worked together, and he helped me like improve my Python skills. Before then, like I said, I was just going wide, just learning Python, taking courses, doing different things. But with my mentor, we could find a focus and just build a project together.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's really great. I feel the same way about Trappist Minds. When I started, I barely knew how to code, to be honest. Like it was like at a point where I was like, is Python a snake? I was like coming from like a very different background. So that's really great to
Yeah.
hear. So you kind
Mhm.
of hinted at this earlier, but you mentioned working with your mentor and like working on a project and kind of learning the code. So could you tell us a bit more about your Sharpest Minds project?
Okay.
What was it about, and like how did you kind of pick the project that you worked on?
Okay. Yeah. So when I registered with Sharpest Mind, I stated my goals. I stated the kind of area I was looking at working in. So when my mentor contacted me and we discussed, he gave me the assignment to like search for like just pick 5 different projects
Mm.
where I would have to go through the data science life cycle, like checking for the data, not just using a readily available data online, right? Like
Yeah.
searching for the data, analyzing the data, just doing everything that would develop my skills all through the duration of the project. So I got different application areas. Like I wanted to optimize player substitution in the NBA. I
Ah,
was looking at
cool.
doing some kind of time series prediction. But the most interesting for both of us to work on was the Amazon reviews analytics. So we saw that there would be a very good application of that in terms of like when there are so many reviews of a product and so many products to pick from, which product would tell you something about what you are really interested in. Like if you have so many laptops to choose from, which
Yeah.
product would the reviews be positive about? Like let's say the RAM size or the hard disk size, for example, and all of that stuff. So we selected the project. Then first I started with like doing the web scraping. So it started
Mm.
from web scraping of product reviews. And the good thing about the whole process was that my mentor was with me every step along the way.
That's
We
awesome.
met like just did like a catch up like every evening, like maybe like just 10 minutes or 20 minutes. If I had any blockers, he would show me where to, get through that, how to get through that, and then go to the next step. So I started with like web reviews, pulling the web reviews, web scraping. Then after the web scraping, then I started to look into the model, get to understand topic modeling more, get to understand natural language processing. It directed me to some areas where I could get help from. And so I went through that. So from the web scraping, I got into like preparing the data in a way that it can be used in the model. That was like developing a document term matrix.
Mm.
After that, then did the LDA modeling, and then we got into the step of now productionizing the whole model, like making the model available online. So we did all of that, and when the project was completed before he made me job ready.
Oh, that's awesome. And that's really
Yeah.
interesting. You actually touched on a lot there. So you talked about kind of like the whole
Very
data
much.
science project lifecycle from
Yeah.
collecting your own data, cleaning your own data, and also, you got your data from web scraping. So
Mm-hmm.
that's super cool.
Yeah.
I guess in terms of, and yeah, also like your project is really relevant, especially today with like COVID and everyone being on Amazon. I mean, I probably use
Yeah.
Amazon every single day, and I definitely look at the product reviews a lot. So it definitely
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
in terms of your project, in your opinion, what was the hardest or most challenging part of working on that project? Was it kind of like both at a technical level and also just like in terms of, project management level? And I mean that in the sense that, if you're working in NLP, for example, what was difficult for you? And in terms of working on like a data science project in general, was there anything challenging, like, working with
Mm-hmm.
deadlines, for example, if you're like in school or
Mm-hmm.
working at the same time, or have other commitments, like I guess what was most challenging for you in that project?
Okay, I think well, I think the help I got from my mentor made it really easy or smooth. But I would say like giving that time commitment because I had other things going. I was trying to wrap up my PhD and still working on the project. So time management was difficult. But I guess the key thing was that desire. I really wanted to complete the project, and there's that passion to complete the project, and also with the mentor there helping me and pushing me every step along the way. That was also helpful. Then finally, the productionizing of the project, like on the project now, productionizing it was difficult because
Mm,
sometimes we're looking at how to optimize our codes. Sometimes there are loops in the codes that may take like 5 minutes to run.
yeah.
And then when I productionize that on Heroku, it doesn't run really smoothly. Like the server may crash, then I have to reload.
Yeah.
So so it was that productionizing, that deployment that really took me a lot of time. In fact, at the time we just had to agree that okay, just going through the process and understanding the different steps of the project was more important than just trying to put the project life out there. So I already gained a lot of skills like using GitHub, merging, branching, learning how to use Flask and all of those different
Mm.
tools. So now really just appreciating the the process was more important than that final stage. So I'll say that final stage of productionizing was really more difficult for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. And it's also cool that you used Flask and Heroku. I feel like when I was doing my project for Sharpest Minds, that was also what my mentor recommended. So it was definitely cool to be able to see, how you go from just like a raw data set or even collecting that data set to the whole like life cycle from like cleaning
Hmm.
to modeling and then, the whole thing and then finally deploying it so like end users can use it.
Yeah.
So we actually have a question on the chat about your project. So it says
Okay.
here from Hadrian, so your capstone project is described as a full stack ML web application. How much
Okay.
data engineering was involved? And especially in regards to the database management with cloud or containerization computing, did you have to do any of those things?
Okay, no, no. Quite frankly, no, we didn't do all of that because I think we're more focused on building the model, understanding NLP first, and then deploying that. So just that life cycle. I think it's now that I think then, like I said, I was really going wide, learning a lot of things, learning Kubernetes, learning Microsoft Azure, learning my GCP. So my mentor wanted me to just focus on one thing and then achieve that. So I would say like it's now that I'm getting more familiar with those terms on for DevOps, as a DevOps engineer and then data engineering. But during my project, I wasn't using those stuff in data engineering because our data was really small. Also, like it
Okay.
wasn't so. We try to like I said, there are some loops that are taking so long to run. So there are times where we reduce like, okay, just pull in 50 reviews from one product and all of that. Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's so important. Totally understand that. I feel like, a lot of NLP models are super data hungry as well. So like
Hmm.
latency is definitely something that, I think people always think about in that field. So really appreciate your discussing that. And kind of like a last question about your project before we move on. So, you talked about the different technologies you use, like the different steps you used. Which part of your project took the longest for you? You talked about how deployment is, was, I guess, something that was a learning curve. But yeah, when you were working on this, like how long did the whole project take you? And like which
Okay.
part took the longest?
Okay. So the project we started in like April
Hmm.
and completed it in like by June,
Okay.
right? So it took about 3 months to
Oh,
complete.
wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but then I wasn't too active in May because I had to make a trip. So I
Okay.
wasn't too active then. But I would say like the optimization of the code,
Hmm.
because and that was because we're trying to productionize, like put it on Heroku through Flask.
Yeah.
So I'll say that was the most difficult part, trying to optimize the code so that it can we can deploy it properly, right? So yeah, that was the part I think, because like the initial codes, like just doing the LDA, running the models and all that, like I think I got that ready by like the end of April, because I started like around mid-April or early April or so. So by the end of April stroke early May, I already had it running and getting some results. But then trying to like now put that online, I think that was what took the most time. The most time, yeah.
Yeah, that's really important. And talking about the models that you use, like optimizing LDA, I think it's really interesting. We used to run like in my master's program, we used to use R. We used to use R to run like, topic models and stuff like that. And it would always take so long for my computer. Like my computer would be like overheating. So I totally feel you on that. It
Yeah,
would make like weird fan sounds. So
yeah,
I was like,
yeah, I can relate. Yeah, yeah, true.
yeah, so shifting gears a
Yeah.
bit, you're now, a data science analyst intern at Low Block Companies Limited. Could you
Mhm.
talk a bit about what the job application process was like for you? Like how did you apply? What kind of jobs did you apply to? Did anything in your project kind of make you more interested in a certain job type? Like for example, you talked about how you wanted your project to be related to your topic of interest. Did you
Okay.
perhaps like the engineering part or the NLP part or other parts of your project that convinced you to apply to specific jobs?
Okay, yeah. So because I was preparing for like data scientist positions and then machine learning engineering positions. So those were the jobs I was looking out for. So I applied on like LinkedIn, I applied on um, Indeed, and then I also paid attention to the charts on Sharpest Minds
Yeah,
jobs
that's great.
channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that was the most effective for me. Like just paying attention to if there are any positions that I was that aligned with what I wanted, and also I had to contact some recruiters. So there's some recruiters from like different companies that I had some chat with, and so I'd say the most effective was the the chat group on Slack, the Slack
Okay,
channel
I
on
see.
jobs for jobs. Yeah. So that was how so there was one of the mentors there put up a post about a job. And so I indicated my interest. And the good thing also, it was also in line with what I wanted, which was the data science position. So data science position, I applied for that. And so we had a conversation, I think the next day or the next 2 days. So it was an interview actually, but I didn't know. I just
Oh,
went there
wow.
like, yeah.
Surprise.
So it was an interview, but I thought it was just like a conversation around, okay, what the job entails and all of that stuff. But when we discussed, I found that the most important thing our discussion centered around was my project with Sharpest Minds.
I
So
see.
we discussed about my project. She saw all the skills that I developed during the project, and I had enough confidence to speak about the project because that was what I actually worked on myself. The projects I've done before now, like some machine learning project that I supervised it. I had some input there, but then it wasn't like 100% just me. but the project I did with Sharpest Mind was 100% like me doing the coding, then my mentor giving me feedback. So I had a lot of confidence to talk about that. So we talked around it. She asked a lot of questions about the model, about topic modeling. I could explain all of that. So I think a week later I got the offer.
Yeah, I think that's great. And one thing that you mentioned, again, just wanted to highlight one thing you mentioned about your Sharpest Minds project. I think one really great thing about,
Hmm.
working and I guess working on a project with a Sharpest Minds mentor is you do get to go through the entire process yourself. And
Yeah, true.
compared to school projects or work projects where
Hmm.
I mean for me, my school projects, I would only deal with a fraction of the work because we would split it up, right? So
Yeah,
here it's
true.
kind of cool because you have 100% ownership in terms of the
Ownership.
direction
Yeah.
you want it to go. You can be
Hmm.
creative with your approaches, try the things that you want to try, maybe on the pre-processing side if you're doing NLP, or on the
Exactly.
deployment, you could try different things. So that's really cool. And I just wanted to highlight what you mentioned there.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
Yeah. So another thing that we talked about is your kind of your project took the first 3 months of your internship. So how
Hmm.
long did it take you to land a job when you started applying? Did you start applying when your project was over, or did you start applying as you were finishing your project? When did the timeline kind of happen for you?
Okay. Okay. I started applying after my project was over, right? So it was my mentor advised me like, okay, I needed to wait to, focus on one thing at a time. So the
Mm,
first thing to focus on was building the project, building the skills. So when I was job ready, then I could focus on the job application, because the job application itself is also a lot of work, right?
yeah,
So
for sure.
yeah, so there are code emails to send, there are people to contact, preparing your resume to fit particular jobs and all of that. So it was after I completed my project that I started applying for jobs. And and yeah, did I answer all of the questions? Sorry, I think that's
Yeah,
it.
no, I think
Yeah.
yeah, you definitely did. And I think you also mentioned that the jobs you were applying for were machine learning engineer jobs and data science jobs as well. I also wanted to highlight another thing that you said for everyone listening. If you guys are on the Sharpest Mind Slack channel, definitely use the jobs
Hmm.
kind
Hmm.
of Slack channel, or I guess is it called thread channel? I think it's called channel. Anyway,
Channel, yeah,
use
channel.
the jobs channel because as
Yeah.
Israel mentioned, we have a lot of great mentors and just a really good community
Hmm.
who are constantly looking for talent.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Something else that happened, like I noticed that before I did my project, when I see job descriptions, it looks really scary, like with a lot of like different models, different GitHub, different things around there. But after my project, I became more confident, became more familiar with the terms used. When they say, oh, they need someone that's able to productionize a code or something, you know, my value was more, I was more confident in my value, that I could bring value to that particular business, right? So completing the project first was really important to develop my confidence in presenting my resume or presenting my value to any company.
Yeah, definitely agree on that. And I think
Yeah.
yeah, you definitely highlighted a lot of the key kind of experiences and challenges and just the learnings that you had when you were working on your project. So
Yeah.
another question from our chat.
Hmm.
Thank you guys for the questions. Really appreciate it. Again,
Yeah.
encourage everyone to ask questions as well. So what was the final delivery format of your project? Was it a live app or a Medium post, or did you do a video, or was it an actual product? I don't know, maybe you put on product hunt or something like that. So what was the final delivery format?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Adrian, for the question. Yeah. So it was a live app. Like we got it on Heroku. So the
Mm.
app was on Heroku. I could put the website on the chat, but
Oh yeah.
everything was first completed on my GitHub.
Mhm.
So then we put that on the live app. But right now, quite frankly, the page shows, but it seems like there's still some, like sometimes the server doesn't run. I don't know. Like it seems Heroku, you have to pay the hosting to be able to run that kind of software. So it only runs on my local system well. So yeah, but it was a live app. And then we also did a lot of the GitHub. I could share the link to the GitHub page. I think that would be more helpful.
Yeah, that would be super
Yeah.
helpful. Yeah, I really appreciate that. Yeah, I also used Heroku before, and I definitely turned it off after a while because it was
Yeah.
asking me to put my credit card details, and I was like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Like after my free credits run out, sorry, I'll just
Yeah.
have to put screenshots for for recruiters because I don't want to looking for a job, not trying to pay
Yeah.
for Heroku. But yeah, I agree on that.
Yeah,
Um,
this is the GitHub link. I'll just
yeah,
put it
and
on
I
there.
guess like another, oh, thank you so much. Yeah, so you guys, I will also share this on Slack after the event, but Israel has
Ah,
kindly shared with us his
okay.
GitHub link for his final project. If you're interested, if you guys are, working on your final project now, definitely check it out as a cool example of what a final project looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like, I guess another question like on the job application is when you were looking for roles during COVID, you talked about how you were mostly messaging on the Sharpest Mind Slack. Did you ever do like cold messaging on like email or LinkedIn, or did you kind of try to find other folks who are not within the Sharpest Minds network to,
Hmm.
to apply for jobs?
Yeah, yeah. So during that time also, I was on other Slack. There were some other Slack channels where I was in. Like I had some like recruiters there. So anytime I see the name recruiter, or anytime I see someone that's a recruiter, I try to contact the person and communicate with them. So I found that recruiters were the most helpful, quite frankly. I had a chat with someone from Wealth Simple. I had a chat with someone from Sobeys. Like the Sobeys, the person from Sobeys still contacts me to today with offers, like not with offers, sorry, with job openings in
Yeah.
Sobeys, right? So the recruiters are the most helpful. uh, so I checked other platforms, of course. Then LinkedIn also. LinkedIn was just that. I
LinkedIn.
think the brand first the brand, I had to prepare my LinkedIn. So my mentor went through my LinkedIn to
Yeah,
approve
yeah.
some to update the my page, update my description. Uh, so all of that stuff helped, like sometimes getting offers just out of the blues, from not offers, rather just getting like emails or notifications from recruiters, like they're interested in my project and all of that. So I also contacted some of them there,
Okay.
right? So it was really just going all over the place. But after I finished my project in like June, by the end of June, July, it didn't take too long before I got the offer of my internship with Low Blog.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
yeah, it was less than a month. So so I didn't
Oh,
do
wow. That's pretty
yeah,
fast. Yeah, yeah. That's
yeah,
great.
yeah. So I didn't do too much of the cold emailing or sending out my resume so much. Of course, I sent out my resume on Indeed and all of those platforms, but not so much. But for preparing for my technical interviews, then I was using Lead Code.
Yeah.
So something happened, like I was so me and my mentor, since I'd finished my project, we started meeting like twice a week or so, with to discuss on technical interview. Like if
Right.
I'd done a lead code, I go through the lead code with him, or he sets an interview for me, then we go through the lead code together and all of that. So I was getting better with lead code. Then with Python, especially lead code on Python. So there was this day we came, I told him like, oh, I think I just got an offer. It was like,
Oh,
are you
wow.
sure? That's so fast. Like, okay. So we still had our normal meeting that day. We went through the lead code together. We did all the interview. Then after the interview, then I told him like, oh, that was actually an offer. Like I just got an offer.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I was surprised. It's not like I was joking. It's not like not really joking. It's not like maybe I just started the interview, but I had not gotten the offer yet, right? So
Yeah.
I was really surprised that it came so fast. It was less than a month after I finished my project. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no,
So
congrats on that. I feel like, so you mentioned your timeline from like starting to apply and then applying, and then within like a month, you got an offer. I feel like that's really fast. So huge
yeah,
congrats.
yeah.
Definitely
Thank you.
show us your ways. I think that's awesome. Um,
Yeah.
so we have another kind of question here in the chat. So
Okay.
during your interview, and this is, I think, very important, especially now that
Mm-hmm.
we're sort of like in a COVID world, you know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
like interviews are a bit different from how they would normally be if we were
Mm-hmm.
in person, for example, and like
Yeah.
a lot of things
Mm-hmm.
have moved online. So did you
Yeah.
have to do pseudo coding during the technical interview?
And no, quite frankly, no. Like I think maybe because it's an internship, and I really wanted to just so when I got the internship, I stopped applying because I wanted to like just take some time to learn and develop some practical,
Absolutely.
like real job knowledge. Like Sometime now I've gotten some other um, recruiters contact me, but I just tell them like this time I want to block it to just, get on the job, learn some new skills before I would go into something else. So I didn't do any technical interview. The only interview, quite frankly, was just that 18 minutes conversation I had with the
Okay.
recruiter, like I said, with the manager actually. Yeah, she's a manager there. So it was just like, oh, what have you worked on? What skill did you gain? Then asked me a lot of questions on that skill. And then I also had some questions for her to know what their current project is, what
Hmm.
software they're using. So we didn't really go into any coding. Yeah,
Got
yeah.
it.
But I think for full-time roles, if it's not an internship, that happens. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's very important as well. Like, I do think like what's interesting about data science, like
Mm-hmm.
as an industry, at least from what I've personally observed, is the interviews are all kind of different, and which is why I also just
Different.
like really appreciate talking
Yeah.
to you guys and like hosting you guys as guests here, because like a lot of the people, like I don't think anyone we've hosted has said the same thing for their interviews. Like everyone's had
Yeah.
like a different answer for like
Different.
what the
Yeah.
interview was like. You know what I mean? I've had
Mm-hmm.
like interviews where it was like coding. I've had interviews where it was like not coding, more behavioral. So really like a mix of everything. And again,
Exactly.
just wanted to highlight that for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess like a follow up to that in terms of your, quick like application process. Again, congrats on that. So what
Okay.
was the process like for you? Did you start with like a phone screen? Did you start with like an HR screen? And then I know you mentioned it wasn't coding technical, but it sounds to me
Okay.
like a lot of your behavioral questions were geared towards kind of like
Mm-hmm.
technical questions about your experience and stuff like that. How many
Yeah.
rounds of interviewing did you go through, and what was each round like?
Okay. Okay. I think because we are data scientists, I think my process was like it's like an outlier. So this is like an outlier because I didn't go I didn't go through so many steps like the behavioral but I think like I said again, if it's a permanent role, for example, if it's not an internship, then those steps would have come in. Like some of the people on my team now, I think they've gone through those they went through those coding interview, technical interview, then or like I said, the only interview I had was that 18 minutes conversation with
Mhm,
the
mhm.
manager. Though it took a lot of time for her to like understand and see my confidence, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think the most important thing she went away with that day was that I was confident about what I had done, right? So I think that's the essence of interviews, to know if you're a good fit in terms of your confidence, and to know if you also would like to work with them, right? So it's a two-way thing. So I think we had that uh, connection. It was good.
yeah.
So I didn't go through any other steps.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and again, just wanted to also highlight another really you have a lot of quotable quotes. So another important thing that
Mm,
you said was talking about really like culture fit, like whether or not you would be good to work
mm,
with at a company. Because I think,
true.
a lot of weight is put on kind of like the actual technical side of the interview, which obviously is important, and like the behavioral
Yeah.
side is important too. But then the other piece of it, which I
Hmm.
think is sometimes overlooked, is just like the culture fit, like how well you would work with a
Yes.
team, how good a team player are you, and also just
Hmm.
like if you genuinely care about like what the company is doing, and if you like
Yes.
add value to the team, and
Yes.
if they would like to work with you. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely wanted to really highlight that as well. And the other thing that you
Yeah.
mentioned was about confidence and delivery. I've heard of a
Exactly.
lot of people who actually got their like interview questions wrong if you're doing like a lead code, but because they were able to confidently say
Confident.
like I don't know this now, but I can like get the answer for you later, or just
Exactly.
like talk about what they do know and then highlight what they can bring to the table and that they're
Hmm.
willing to learn, which you mentioned like on the confidence piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really important.
Yeah. Exactly. um yeah, so like I think one thing also, it's when you're doing an interview, if you have an interest, if you're interested in the company, then one way you will show that interest is by asking questions.
Hmm.
Like if you leave the interview without asking questions, then the interviewer may think like, oh, maybe this person is not so interested in what we're doing, or yeah, that may not show that there's a connection there, right? So I asked a lot of questions about like what's their current project like, what are they working on, what tools are they using, because if I'm starting soon, I would like to know if it's something I already know of or it's something I can just take some time to build up on before joining them, right?
Yeah.
I asked about what models are they using, and yeah, all of that stuff. I really took some time. It took a lot of time, like maybe half of the time to ask her that.
Oh wow. Yeah, no, that's key though. I think that's really like
Yeah.
you're definitely hitting a very important point there. Like asking, a lot of questions that kind of figure out whether or not you think
Mhm.
you're a good fit for the team, whether or not, you're interested in the team. So asking questions that not only show interest, but also show you whether or not you personally would like to work there, right?
Yeah,
So I think
exactly.
that's very important. Definitely come prepared with questions to
Mhm.
the interview. And for you guys who are Sharpest Minds mentees, just wanted to again share another resource that we have on the website. So if you're
Yes.
on the Sharpest Minds website, there's a lot of resources there about types of questions that you could ask during the
Yeah.
interview tips, and so on and so forth. And they're kind of compiled from prior mentees as well as just like tips from the Sharpest Minds team and
Yeah.
mentor. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. Um, yeah, so I guess like after the interview, now that you're actually working there as an intern and as a data science analyst intern, how is the job going for you? Like, what kind of work do you do, and what are the most important skills that you took away from your mentorship that you're now using in your job as a data science analyst intern?
Okay. Okay. From my mentorship, I would say the learning Git,
Mm,
right? So because we Git would always like push our codes, pull
yeah.
codes from the develop branch, like so collaborating with your team members would involve a lot of Git programming. So I learned that during like I got to know that really well during my Sharpest Minds mentorship, right? Because focused on just Python programming,
Yeah.
data science, but how do you collaborate with people, right? So it's through learning Git that has really helped me now where I'm working, and also understanding how to productionize codes. Though we're not doing a lot of that yet,
Mm,
but understanding the whole process also made me understand now when we're talking about the kind of products we are building, and also using those products to, and also connecting with the data engineering
yeah.
team,
Yeah.
and also like those that deploy the project. It makes me understand when they are communicating. So I would say the Git, then the productionizing code, that really helped me a lot. Then right now, what we're working on is just working with people, programming, mainly Python programming. We're using a
Yeah.
Google Cloud. Then we use Google Cloud, develop models. Then also we're using Teradata, of course, right? So SQL.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then on Google Cloud, we're using BigQuery, right? So I would say like first, my understanding of Python programming first, like how to really, also like I said, I said that when we're running the codes, there were a lot of loops that I had to optimize my codes. So
Mm,
now when I'm coding with my team, I understand that using too many loops may make your codes kind of slow, right? So
yeah.
I understand that from my work with my mentor in Sharpest Mind. So that helps me really clean up my codes when I'm working with my team. So I'll say Jupyter notebooks,
Yeah.
productionizing codes, BigQuery, Google Clouds. Yeah, those are the things we're working on basically. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely key. I think, talking about the workflow is something that having a mentor really helps because, like, you could go through it by yourself, but like if you don't know like what the appropriate way to,
Hmm.
like go through the workflow, like push to Git, for example. Like when I was
Yeah.
learning in the beginning, when I was learning Git, I was so confused about like branching. Like I
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I was so confused about how do you like why is it called like pull request if you're actually pushing? I didn't even understand the terminology, right? So
True.
having a mentor really helped me on that, and just going through the process of kind of like working
Hmm.
on like a GitHub repo between you and your mentor and like getting
Hmm.
code review. So that was
Yeah.
something that was
Exactly.
like unfamiliar to me, and I think you really touched on, especially when you talked about Git. And the other thing that you mentioned, which I think is really important, is like the workflow aspect, right? Like how do you like productionize code? At least in grad school, a lot of the code I had was like on a clean Jupyter notebook, and then we write up a report about it, but we're not putting anything really into production. But
Yeah.
in a job, for example, like people, people may read your paper if you write a paper, but oftentimes they just want to use your API or whatever it is that you build. So
Exactly.
yeah, so
Yeah,
definitely
that's
really
true.
wanted to thank you for sharing that, because I think that's very, very
Mhm.
important.
Yeah, yeah.
And something that I wish I knew before like I started working, for example.
Okay, okay. I think that's one thing that happens also. There's likely to be there's like to be something new when you start working, right?
Mhm.
I need a lot of Python programming. I need a lot of Git for my work with Sharpest Minds. But when I got in, I was already learning some GCP, right?
Wow, yeah,
Some Google
yeah.
Cloud. So, but when I got, there's still a lot of new things to learn. Then still a lot of like permissions for me to access the system. So it takes a lot of time to really just settle into the job and start
Yeah.
providing value. So that time really can be a lot of time of just learning new things, developing yourself so that you can provide value also.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of
Yeah.
like learning on the job, do you have any like tips for, our other viewers or other mentees? Like, did you do a lot of like coffee
Mhm.
chats? Were there a lot of like internal like learning and development type of meetings, that kind of thing? Or like how did you continue learning while you were on the job? Were there like mostly company resources and your personal
Okay.
like online resources, or what were the resources that you used and what were the things that you did?
Yeah, so just to continue my learning, like I think my company now provides a lot of value in that space. Like they
Mhm.
provide access to like online platforms like Udemy,
Yeah.
provide access to like Google Quick Labs.
Oh, wow.
Then they also provide access like Coursera. So
Oh,
there are courses that one can just take to learn any skill. And then I also got an internal mentor. Like there's someone that's already probably 5 years ahead of you on the job. So if you can like uh they encourage communication, though not like taking the person's time too much because the person has to
yeah.
work. But then if he has time for you, like maybe like give you 10 minutes or 20 minutes in a week, and then they just guide you in the direction where they can prepare you for an area where you would add the most value to the company, maybe in like the next 1 year or some few months down the line, right? So just looking ahead of you to find someone that's up there that will be willing to guide you. I think that helps so that you don't be like me and go learn everything again without directions. So I don't want to make that mistake twice. So I was lucky to get a mentor that's internal also for me. So that's really helpful too.
Yeah, I think that's super important. And that's also something that I just wanted to like share with everyone, like having a mentor
Hmm.
internally who, not only is able to understand the infrastructure of your company, which most of the time is kind of, I guess not public information. So like having
Yeah,
someone
yeah.
internally who can guide you through that and also just guide you through like the code base if you have codes and packages that are only internal, really
Hmm.
helps. And also just like somebody who understands the kind of like career progression within your team and who can give you
Hmm.
advice on
Hmm.
like team specific, company specific things, like how would you normally
Hmm.
present a piece of work that you're done with, how would you who do you go to if you have a question about so and so
Hmm.
package, or like how do you when to go to like the data engineering team versus like what are
Yeah, true,
whatever other team that you have internally, how does like product work with like other teams. So I yeah,
true,
definitely wanted to highlight that as well.
true. Yeah.
um so another question about your job search, and this is kind of like a spicy question. So, just feel
Okay.
free to share as much as you'd like to share. So,
Okay.
you mentioned that, you kind of got your job pretty quickly, which is great. So did you
Mhm.
negotiate your salary and,
Okay.
from like Sharpest Minds mentee turned like, like data
Okay.
scientist, like, do you think you should negotiate your salary?
Yeah, I would say it's good to negotiate, but um, I didn't have the opportunity to negotiate. I think I was really fast to just accept the offer. Right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
was over. I got it over the phone. Like, hello, are you taking this offer? I was like, yes, I'm taking it. Like, so so I didn't even have the time to like say, okay, hold on, like, can we talk about this? But then I think there was that opportunity there, but I didn't know. I Yeah, I didn't know about. I didn't know that there was that. But I think most employers, once they accept you, once they call you in, then they are willing to negotiate. There'll be opportunities for you to give feedback and say, okay, this is what you want. So I think in that case, it's important to have known, like, okay, research the salary scale within that particular domain about what you want. I think it's important to negotiate. I would say I missed that. That's something well, not really that I wish I did. I'm just okay with what they offered. I think what they offer was really good also. So maybe that's why I didn't negotiate. But I think it's good to negotiate. Yeah.
Yeah, totally hear you
Yeah.
on that. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
I was the same way when I got a job offer. I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll go.
Yeah.
Like, can I accept right now on the phone? So I feel like most
Exactly.
people actually like take some time to think, but I was
Yeah.
like, yes. So
Yeah. So I just took the offer straight away. Like, yeah.
like I feel
But
you on that. I took the
yeah.
offer and then I went drinking after, and I was just like, oh, thank God my job search is over. Because
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with you. Like looking for a job during the pandemic is extremely hard and like
Yeah. Exactly.
takes a
Exactly.
toll on
Mhm.
like your mental
Mhm.
health. And I guess
Yeah.
on that note, so you were job searching during the pandemic also while completing your PhD and also like while attending to like all the other things you're doing. And I remember you mentioned you kind of moved to Canada from Nigeria. So I assume,
Mhm.
do you still have family in Nigeria right now?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
how did you deal with like the stress and just like,
Mhm.
how did you like make sure your mental health was okay when you were applying for a job? Because like sometimes I do think applying for a job or like an internship is really like a mind game. It takes a lot of like
A
like
lot of
grit and like
focus.
mental
Yeah.
perseverance. So
Yeah. I think that's a like a very important question, really. Like I think once you develop the skill, take your time to develop the skill. That's why that 3 months of mentorship was really important for me, right? Before now, I had actually tried to get a job before, like even during my PhD years, I was thinking, oh, I'm a permanent resident in Canada, maybe I should be able to get a job, and all those times before then. But I was just learning skills, like I said, just learning more skills, learning new things.
yeah.
Because one time I sat down and be like, okay, what do I really want? Okay, I want a job and I need a mentor. So I went on Google and be like, okay, let me search for a mentor here. Where can I find mentors in data science? So, and then luckily, which thank God I saw like Sharpest Mind. So, and it worked really well for me perfectly. So getting that with the time frame that we had, my mentor asked me like, when do you want to get the job? I said maybe within 3 to 4 months time. He said,
Oh
okay,
wow, yeah.
that's really optimistic, but we'll try our best. Let's see what we can do. So we did work together on that. And so I think when I developed the skill, when I learned everything that I wanted to learn, I was more confident that, okay, I think I can provide value to a company now. I think I can get a job. So at that time, I was now giving myself, okay, let's say by September, I should be able to start a new job. So that confidence really put my head in a very, like put me in a very good mental space there. So I was more confident. I had faith. Everything was just in place to like go for it. Yeah. So really just taking time to develop the skill helps. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. And again, going back to that point of confidence, I feel like it's very important, because like applying for jobs is very draining. Like everyone's already drained during the pandemic. And like those two things by themselves are already mentally draining. Put them together
Yeah.
as like a mentally draining nightmare. So
Yeah.
definitely having a confidence, I think, is very important, especially, like dealing with like rejections or like,
Mm-hmm.
people like interviews not going well, so on and so forth, right? I think you hit on a really important point about like being confident that you know what
Yeah.
you're talking about, that you kind
Yeah.
of like can get a job, and really just like being your biggest fan, right? Because like there
Yeah.
are times when you need to cheer yourself on because
Yeah. True.
yeah,
True. Yeah.
yeah. And the
Yeah.
other thing I'd like to say is like kind of like you mentioned also like data points earlier, like using each job application and like each point in the application as like a data point. So not
Mm-hmm.
looking at a job like rejection as like something super negative, but like if you
Mm-hmm.
get through phone screen, like that's checked, like your resume is good. If you
Good.
get through
Yeah.
like second layer, at least you got through that and kind of like um
Exactly.
mindset. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Another thing that I did, I just tried to shut down every negativity. Like I remember then I subscribed to an email list. So on the email list, I don't know if the guy was trying to get people to register for something. So he sent
Yeah.
an email and the title of the email was rejected. Like so he put rejected there to get people's attention to like click
Yeah.
on the email and go through it so that they, like I just saw rejected. I'm like, no, I'm shutting this guy out. Like I just unsubscribe because I'm trying to get accepted emails and telling me rejected. No, no. So I just took him out of my email. So I just remembered that like that was one encounter where I tried to like just shut down every form of negativity.
Yeah, I agree. It's also just like in terms of like your kind of like perspective, it is like the things that you're reading, the things that you're surrounding yourself with. So,
Exactly.
having like a supportive community who like backs you and who supports you and who like tries to like make you feel empowered, I think is really important. And that's,
Yeah.
I hope that's something that we share with everyone through our webinar series as well. So,
True.
yeah. So, I guess
Yeah.
now we are in the last 5 minutes of our webinar. Wow, how did time go so fast? I feel like I have so many
Yeah.
questions to ask, you.
Okay.
but,
Yeah.
but
Thank
yeah,
you.
so I would
Yeah.
just encourage everyone to ask any last questions if they have any.
Okay.
Yeah, and in the last 5 minutes, I guess my question for you is, what are your three biggest learnings, both from your Sharpest Minds kind of like mentorship and during
Mhm.
the job search? Like, if you have like three learnings that you want to share with the audience, what would they be?
Okay. I'd say the first to be clarify your goals.
Mm-hmm.
Be sure what you want. So what you want would help you know what skills you should develop, what kind of mentor you should get connected with, and those kind of things. Like I think that's clear from my example so far that I was just all over the place, but eventually I got a mentor that helped me clarify my goals. So it's
Yeah.
important to clarify your goals first. Then it's important also to clarify your brand and your value. So if you know the value that you're bringing in, then you're able to, apply for jobs with confidence, interview with confidence, because you're now sure of your value. You're able to present yourself knowing how valuable you are, right? Like clarifying your brand also. I think that when I went to my LinkedIn and cleaned up my LinkedIn, put all my
Yeah.
certifications there, those kind of things. Um, though I know it's not 100%, right? My
Yeah.
LinkedIn I can do much better there,
Yeah.
but I tried a little bit to know, okay, I think this presents my brand, this presents the value I can bring. Like it's in a much better place than what it was like 3 months ago, actually. So by now I
Yeah.
can do some
Absolutely.
improvement there. So clarify your brand and your value. Then finally, connect with people, connect with recruiters, connect with mentors. Uh, like I think for my search for my job search, recruiters were the most helpful.
Mhm.
They were the most helpful. Like they can help you, give you feedback on where your resume needs some improvement, or give
Yeah.
you feedback on connect you with the right person within their team. So those kind of things, I think connect with people, connect with recruiters, and I think that would be the three top things I can share. Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are really important. So, building your brand and then clarifying your values and then connecting with people. I think that's definitely important. That's definitely something I'm going to take away, not just like in the job search, but like in my life as well.
In
I think
life
those are like
generally.
life lessons in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with that, I just wanted to thank you again for being here and like close up the webinar. I really learned a lot from you, and I'm sure like everybody else learned a lot from you as well. So we will be posting the link to this on YouTube, and I'll send you the link when it's up. And
Okay.
again, just wanted to thank everyone for coming and see you guys next week at our next webinar. And yeah, really hope you guys have a great week. And thank you again, Israel, for being an amazing guest.
Yeah. Thank
I
you,
will chat
Amber.
with you on Slack.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Bye
Okay.
bye.
Bye. Bye. Yeah.